Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking out this video. Today's video will be a bit of a different style. I've been compiling basically a bunch of video footage of IDF war crimes, and I'm basically going to present it to the world, so here it is. You know, over the past few years, I've seen basically a bunch of horrible shit on the internet, and that horrible shit is a genocide in Gaza. And I think we know now that human beings are basically the same as they were in World War II and previous, that basically nothing's changed and it's all just about the powerful. I know for a fact that America has crossed the Rubicon, America and Israel. There's no going back once you start starving babies to death and killing hundreds of thousands of people. So I don't know where we're going from here, but I just know that the country's fucked, we're fucked, we committed genocide, and yeah, this is a pretty dark timeline. As far as my religion goes, my religion is still Judaism, but I'm doing a lot of learning, and what I've seen so far is that no religion is perfect. That's for damn sure. So, I don't know. I'm still going to keep practicing, but I'm definitely not going to take it as serious as I used to. As far as the channel name, I'm probably going to change it who knows when to who knows what. But keep an eye out for that. I'm probably not even going to announce it. It's just going to happen at some point. Thanks for checking out this content. I hope you enjoy, or I hope you don't enjoy, depending on who you are. If you support Israel, you're probably going to love this and jack off to it. If you don't support Israel, you're probably going to see this as another reason why the state of Israel shouldn't be supported by the United States militarily. Either way, I hope you guys are having a great day. God bless. Take care. Thanks for watching.
Who have been arrested for torture, sexual abuse and rape of Palestinian detainees. The protesters were egged on by members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet, who told their supporters to go there and stop the arrests. Multiple reports and testimonies from Palestinian detainees, Israeli whistleblowers, human rights groups and media outlets say sexual abuse against prisoners is widespread. In one report, a medic at Said Tamim said he had treated a Palestinian man with signs of extreme torture, including rectal injuries. Said Tamim was opened on the 1st of December 2023 to handle the overflow of Gazans being taken captive by the Israeli occupational army following its ground invasion of the besieged Strip on the 27th of October 2023. None of the detainees at the facility were charged before being incarcerated there. While Israel claims they are Hamas fighters, none of this has been proven. The backlash against the questioning of the soldiers accused of sexual violence turned them into heroes among sections of the Israeli public. One of the accused soldiers, Mir Ben Shitrit, became a regular fixture on Israeli television. The case has triggered a debate about how Israel should treat its captives, but the use of sexual violence and rape is not new, and Israel has used it going all the way back to 1948. The use of sexual violence against Palestinians was systemic before the 7th of October 2023.
We have hundreds of cases of Palestinian prisoners that were subjected to sexual assault and violence at the hands of the occupation during their detention. There are many cases that have amounted to rape of the detainees. There are cases of rape against children as well. These violations have been happening before October 7th.
Sexual harassment is systemic in how Israel treats Palestinians. There there are widespread reports of Palestinian female prisoners being strip-searched by male soldiers who verbally abuse and grope them and force them to squat while searching their private parts. Palestinian men and children report similar experiences. Rape threats have also been used against detainees.
So they believe that this is sort of the most impactful way of how to frighten or scare female detainees.
Violations against Palestinians are rarely punished by Israeli authorities. In 2021, Israeli authorities removed a gag order on a case of one soldier who served in Israel's civil administration, which oversees the occupied West Bank, who was convicted in 2016 on a host of charges that included rape and sexual harassment. The officer in question was responsible for issuing permits to Palestinians to work in Israel. Between 2013 to 2015, he was found to have raped one Palestinian woman on 2 separate occasions who came to him for a work permit. He forced himself onto her and raped her, forced her to clean up once he was done, gave her a permit and then rescinded the permit and forced her to do it again. He also had sex with another woman in exchange for permits and routinely harassed other women. He was even accused of sharing state secrets with 2 Palestinian women he tried to coerce. While this soldier was convicted, in most cases nothing happens. More recently, Haaretz reported that a Palestinian woman was sexually harassed by an Israeli soldier at a checkpoint in Hebron. While she was passing through a checkpoint alone, the soldier pulled down his trousers and exposed himself. Since the 7th of October 2023, women in Hebron have complained that sexual harassment at checkpoints has increased and includes taking pictures of them, commenting on their appearance and other inappropriate behaviours, of which Israeli authorities have done nothing to prevent. A 2019 UN Human Rights Council report found many cases of abuse against Palestinian women perpetrated in prisons, police stations and in the custody of the Israeli Security Agency, otherwise known as Shin Bet or Shabak. Between 2001 to 2019, 1,200 complaints were filed to an Israeli government department responsible for investigating abuse claims made against the Israeli Security Agency, but the report notes that only 1 complaint was ever investigated. In 2019, a woman from Hebron was detained by the security agency and her interrogators used sexual violence against her to obtain a confession.
There's no sort of way to know why the occupation does what they do. There is no accountability and no one is holding them accountable to their crimes, and there is no sort of system to punish them for their crimes that they're committing against Palestinians.
Other forms of sexual violence employed by Israel include the use of blackmail, of which there are a large number of reports, in particular that target the LGBT+ communities in Palestine. This is often to secure cooperation from an individual. Up until recently, claims that Israel uses sexual violence against Palestinians have been met with denial. Indeed, in 2007, a research paper that won the Hebrew University of Jerusalem's Teacher Prize Award made the surprising claim that cases of Israeli occupational forces raping Palestinian women in the occupied territories was very rare and low. The paper's author, Tal Nitzan, argued that the lack of rape was a political decision in order to reinforce ethnic boundaries between Israelis and Palestinians. Soldiers, it argued, saw Palestinians as too dehumanized to be considered for rape and feared that offspring produced from the sexual violence would contribute to a growing Palestinian demographic. In other words, Israeli forces were too racist to rape Palestinian women. Despite these claims, there is in fact a long history of sexual violence and rape going back to the Zionist militias prior to 1948 and by the Israeli army after the Nakba. In his 2016 book State of Terror, Thomas Suarez documents a number of cases of Zionist militias and Israeli forces engaging in rape and gang rape, including the story of a Palestinian woman being kidnapped from her village by Israeli border forces and gang raped over a few days. The 2022 documentary film Torah, which recounts the story of the massacre of a Palestinian village in 1948 by Zionist militias affiliated with the Haganah, former militiamen laugh as they confess to raping young girls as they ethnically cleansed the village.
וגם הנשים היו לבושות ויפה, וזה באמת היה כפר אחד, אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה.
While it is often said that Palestinians do not speak out when they are victims of sexual violence due to social stigma, over the decades many Palestinian women have spoken up about the abuses they've suffered.
أخذوني عند الشباب عشان يعترفوا أنا عريانة وربطوني يعني ربطوا إيدي وربطوا إجري وأنا عريانة تماما. مش رح أوعيكي طبعا مش رح تشوعية يجوا شلحوني غصبا عني. عروني بشكل كامل وربطوا فتفت في صدري والشخص آخر مسك إجري وثبتهم بدأ يحاول يدخل عصاي في هالأمر.
Since the 7th of October 2023, the number of Palestinians being taken prisoner, especially from Gaza, increased. According to the Israeli Physicians for Human Rights report, before the 7th of October 2023, some 5,500 Palestinians were detained by Israel. As of January 2024, this number increased to 9,000. However, no official numbers are available on how many Palestinians from Gaza are being held by Tel Aviv. Reports of rape and sexual violence against Palestinians have increased since 7th of October 2023. In addition to this, since Israel's ground invasion of Gaza on the 27th of October 2023, a large number of TikTok, Telegram and social media videos have been shared showing Israeli soldiers wearing Palestinian women's underwear and parading it for the cameras. Rape is not only affecting Palestinians. Within Israel, sexual violence is a major issue. According to a Jerusalem Post article from 2021, the number of sexual violence incidents in Israel is above the average for an OECD country. In 2019, 92% of rape cases were closed without anyone being held accountable. After the 7th of October 2023, some 200,000 Israelis were displaced from their homes near Gaza and Lebanon, and many went to live in shelters. Up until February 2024, 116 rapes, sexual assaults and harassment cases were filed from these shelters. Some commentators in the Israeli media say that Israel's militaristic culture might be partially responsible for the high levels of sexual violence. The army is also not a safe place for Israeli women. Between 2016 to 2023, there was an 82% increase in reported sexual offences against female soldiers. Israel's rape culture was not born on the 7th of October 2023. It was decades in the making, and violations against Palestinians are systemic and can be traced back to the foundations of the State of Israel.
They know what it means for both Palestinian men and women when it comes to anything regarding their body or their physical well-being, when it comes to the dignity and it comes to the nature of how Arab society and Palestinian society is as well. There's a very high honor and respect for one's body.
Something that is related to all that we're talking about, the dehumanization of Palestinians, the media bias. And this is why I thought the Amsterdam story was so important, because whenever you can find cases of media bias, it's really important to point them out, because people won't realize media bias. It's very hard to realize, because you have to compare what actually happened to what you're seeing on your screens. And if so, it's hard for people to know what's being misrepresented. Yeah. But, one of the things that I think I mention almost like every show or very frequently, because it's just so galling, is the total double standard in the coverage of rape. And we have Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, Kamala Harris, Sheryl Sandberg, Hillary Clinton talking about this Hamas mass rape hoax. I'll call it a hoax.
It is.
Yeah, it's a hoax. I always say that in case I don't want to get other people in trouble when they appear with me. But okay, it is a hoax. So you'll say that too. They talk about the rape that there's no evidence of, and they talk about it as if it's real. And it would be one thing if they did that, but also mentioned the rapes of Palestinians. That would show at least maybe you think they're misinformed or they don't know any better because, let's face it, the media is perpetuating this. But knowing that there has been documented cases of rape that's been covered by the Israeli media, knowing that there were protests against the arrest of rapists, knowing that a member of the Knesset said it was, quote, legitimate, end quote, to, quote, insert sticks into people's rectums, end quote, knowing that there was a rabbi who blessed one of these rapists, and knowing that these rapists appear on Israeli television, the only way you can fail to cover that is because you absolutely don't care about rape and sexual violence. You don't care about Palestinians. You just care about it, ironically, as a weapon of war, a weapon of genocide. And I wanted to play a clip of an extremely disturbing story about a doctor. We actually had covered this a long time ago a while ago, because we knew that this incredibly selfless, brave Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, who refused to leave his patients, we knew he was killed in Israeli custody. And now there's a new Sky News report. And again, as we just pointed out, Sky News is not exactly biased towards Palestinians and anti-Israel, which makes this even all the more shocking. But let's just take a look at this clip.
This is the recovery room, full darkness, no water, no electricity. But we have a hero, surgeons in Gaza.
These are the words of Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, one of the best-known surgeons in Gaza, as he documented the situation at Al-Shifa Hospital last year. The conditions were deteriorating in the weeks that followed October 7th. So bad, in fact, there was nowhere left to store the bodies. Here, al-Bursh and colleagues dig mass graves in the hospital compound. The Israelis said Al-Shifa was used as a command and control center by Hamas, and they placed it under siege. Patients, staff, and displaced residents were forced to evacuate. But al-Bursh took a different path. The beginning of his story in Israeli detention. He worked at several hospitals nearby, these pictures taken at Al-Alda Hospital, the last images we have of Dr. al-Bursh. He was detained several days later after the hospital director said the men had to leave. His colleague, Dr. Mohammed Obeid, was with him at the time.
فقال لنا أن قوات الاحتلال لديها كشف كامل بجميع أسماء الذكور ما بين 14 سنة و 65 سنة في مستشفى العودة، ولقد قالوا له حرفيا إذا لم يأتي جميع الرجال الموجودين في الداخل فسيقوموا بتدمير مستشفى العودة وما فيه.
These drone images match his description of events. Obeid says the Israelis took 5 medical workers away, including al-Bursh. A human rights lawyer has obtained a deposition from a prisoner at Ofa who said he witnessed the moments leading up to the doctor's death.
He had clearly been assaulted with injuries around his body. He was naked in the lower part of his body. The prison guard threw him in the middle of the yard and left him there.
The deposition says al-Bursh was taken by an inmate to one of the cells.
A few minutes later, prisoners were heard screaming from the room they went into, declaring Dr. Adnan al-Bursh have been martyred.
Yet we have absolute silence on this from Dana Bash, and nonstop discussion of Palestinian violence against Israelis.
You know, just going back to Amsterdam, I think it was Philip Proudfoot on Twitter who said it's the first time that world leaders have expressed thoughts and prayers in solidarity with football hooligans.
Oh, yeah.
And so now here, you know, what's often said about these Israeli narratives is that every accusation is a confession. And I believe it was Sarah Leah Whitson who said, every accusation is not only a confession, but a statement of intent. Mm. And so here you had, you know, the mass rape hoax of October 7th. And by hoax, I'm not referring to, I'm not suggesting there were absolutely no incidents of sexual violence or gender-based violence, but this constant story that's being repeated to this very day that there was an organized, premeditated campaign of systematic rape and sexual violence on October 7th. There is absolutely no evidence for that, for the simple reason that, like the Amsterdam pogrom, it simply didn't happen. What we do know is that we have this Israeli detention center in southern Israel, Sde Timan, which effectively functioned as a torture center and also as a center for rape of prisoners, primarily men being not only raped, but also gang raped, and also being raped by trained German shepherds and the like. And in the case of Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, he was arrested in November or December, I believe. He was I think head of the pediatric department at Al-Shifa Hospital, you know, the famous Hamas Pentagon that wasn't, and had moved to different hospitals, and ultimately was in Al-Auda Hospital in the northern Gaza Strip, where, as the clip you just showed, the Israelis threatened that if all men between the ages of, 18 and 65 or 16 and 65 didn't immediately surrender, the entire hospital, including everyone within it, patients and all, would be bombed to smithereens. He was arrested, taken to Sde Timan in southern Israel, and then moved to Ofer prison just outside Ramallah in the West Bank, where he had his final moments. And all the indications are that he was raped, literally raped to death. Because again, you know, it doesn't fit the story we're constantly being told of these absolutely beautiful, angelic, innocent Israeli victims who, genocide notwithstanding, would never hurt a fly, and these Palestinians who are evil incarnate.
News here in the Middle East, a massive explosion at the largest refugee camp in Gaza. Joining us now is Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht. He's the international spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask you first about this massive blast that we all just saw. We saw the video at the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza. Is there anything more you could first of all tell us about how this explosion happened?
Hi, Wolf. Thanks for having me. So we'll be coming out in the next, hopefully, hour with more data, but I can update you now that there was a very senior Hamas commander in that area. Sadly, he was hiding, again, as they do, behind within civilians. And that's all I can say at this point. We're looking into it, and we'll be coming out with more data as we learn what happened there.
So can you confirm it was an Israeli attack that destroyed a big chunk of that Jabalia refugee camp?
Yes, I can. We were focused again on a target, a senior commander, Wolf, and we'll be updating you with more data as the hour moves ahead.
But even if that Hamas commander was there amidst all those Palestinian refugees who are in that Jabalia refugee camp, Israel still went ahead and dropped a bomb there, attempting to kill this Hamas commander, knowing that a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, presumably would be killed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf. We're focused on this commander, again, who you'll get more data who this man was. Killed many Israelis. We're doing everything we can. It's a very complicated battle space. There could be infrastructure there. There could be tunnels there. We're still looking into it, and we'll give you more data as the hour moves ahead.
But you know that there are a lot of refugees, a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children in that refugee camp as well, right?
This is the tragedy of war, Wolf. I mean, as you know, we've been saying for days, move south. Civilians that are not involved with Hamas, please move south.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit more information. You knew there were civilians there, you knew there were refugees, all sorts of refugees, but you decided to still drop a bomb on that refugee camp attempting to kill the Hamas commander. By the way, was he killed?
I can't confirm yet. There'll be more updated. Yes, we know that he was killed. About the civilians there, we're doing everything we can to minimize. I'll say it again. Sadly, they are hiding themselves within civilian population. And again, we are doing this stage by stage, and we're going to go after every one of these terrorists who was involved in that heinous attack on the 7th of October. Wolf.
At least 38 people are dead in Gaza, including 2 Red Cross workers, following Israeli airstrikes this weekend. Among the dead are a local journalist and a senior rescue service official, according to Gaza health authorities. Israel now controls around 77% of the Gaza Strip, according to Hamas's media office. And people in Gaza can be seen jumping onto aid trucks in a desperate attempt to get much-needed food. 107 aid trucks carrying food, flour, medical equipment, and drugs have been transferred into the Strip. This after Israel blocked aid in early March, accusing Hamas of stealing what was meant for civilians. Israel says it will soon begin operating 4 distribution centers in South.
Grabs her phone and has her little boys on FaceTime. And her boys are adorable. I think they're around age 7 and 9. And they're in Gaza. And here I am, like, thinking, like, trying to be sweet and talk to her boys in, like, the Miss Rachel voice. But I'm also like, what if my son was over there and my husband, and then I'm here with my little girl losing her legs? And then I'm thinking about the boys, and I was asking if there's any way they can come here. And this wonderful woman was saying, because I was asking kind of her to, she was translating, and I said, is there any way for them to come here? And she was saying no. And she was saying they don't eat anymore on FaceTime with them. Sorry.
No, it's a horrific situation.
And then the translator, I remembered she had said, like, thank you for seeing our children as human, when I had spoke out before. And so I want those little boys to have everything my little boy has. And their mom's a teacher like me. She's a math teacher.
Wow.
So we're both teachers, and our children are our world. A friend recently told me about a quote from Jewish text, which is, every life is a universe. And I wrote that down. I just thought it was so beautiful.
I'm watching Predator 2 right now, and typically the Predators eliminate anyone who's armed, but they spared one of the characters in the movie because she was pregnant, meaning that the Predators have more morals than the state of Israel. I'm watching Predator 2 right now, and typically the Predators eliminate anyone who's armed, but they spared one of the characters in the movie because she was pregnant, meaning that the Predators have more morals than the state of Israel.
This one hurts. Gaza's youngest influencer, 11-year-old Yakin Hamad, was killed in an Israeli airstrike on Friday. Her body was found in the rubble of her home in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza. She was one of several children who died that day. Yakin had gained over 100,000 followers by sharing survival tips from inside the war zone. She showed how to cook without gas, how to stay hopeful under bombardment, and how children in Gaza still found reasons to smile. Her videos often featured laughter, dancing, and small moments of joy. She worked closely with the Weena Collective, a local local humanitarian group. Alongside her brother Mohammed, she distributed food, clothes, and toys to displaced children living in shelters. In her final post, Yakin wrote, "Today is a happy day for Gaza's orphans. We gave them new clothes and a little joy." After news of her death spread, hundreds of messages appeared under her videos. One read, "What did a little girl do to deserve this?" Another said, "We're sorry we couldn't protect you." According to Gaza's health authorities, more than 15,000 children have been killed since the war began in October 2023.
Tell them to take the safe route. Take the safe route. Okay, now bomb the safe route. Bombing safe route. Tell them to go to the refugee center. Attention Palestinians, go to the refugee center. Now bomb the refugee center. Bombing refugee center? Oh, what? Looks like some of them are getting into ambulances. Bomb the ambulances. Copy. They're on their way to the hospital. Bomb the hospital. Bombing hospital. Okay, now tell them there's an escape route south to Egypt. Attention Palestinians, head south to Egypt. Okay, now bomb the escape route. Figured that. And again. Already on it? And again. What are we gonna tell the press? Beheaded babies.
More than 30 Palestinians have been shot and killed on their way to receive food from a distribution centre in Gaza, according to health officials. Authorities at a Red Cross hospital close to the aid site in Rafah said another 175 people were wounded. Witnesses told reporters that Israeli forces had opened fire on the crowd. The Israeli military said the incident is under review. More than 30 Palestinians have been shot and killed.
At the University of Tromsø, Norway. First of all, thank you very much for your time. Now, you've trained and worked alongside doctors in Gaza for the past 20 years. What's your reaction to the Israeli military's systematic or apparent systematic targeting of Gaza's health system time and time again?
I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised, because all of us who have been working over the years in Gaza and also in the West Bank, we know that the Israeli occupation forces have, as part of their operational plans, to attack healthcare, and not only hospitals, but also ambulances, primary healthcare centers, and other health facilities, and the supply lines. So this should not be new to neither the governments of Europe nor to the WHO or the US, because Israel has been allowed to attack the healthcare system, in Gaza in particular, for many, many years, and it's very well documented. What we are seeing now, however, is unprecedented. It is so brutal, it's so barbaric, that sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I have a hard time understanding that I live in 2024. When is this going to be stopped by responsible governments who says that USA has to stop Israel? We are watching full screen live coverage of a massive abuse of human lives, of healthcare systems, and war crimes in the making. And we are watching live a genocide where part of the focus is precisely to deny the Palestinian civilian population healthcare, so that if they are not killed by the bombs, they're either killed by the complications to their wounds or to their diseases, or to starvation, or to lack of clean water. It's very systematic, it's very deliberate, it's extremely cynical, and it's a crime against humanity.
Now, you must know many of the staff that are working at these hospitals under repeated Israeli attack. Are you in contact with them, and what are they saying? And indeed, do you know Dr. Hussam Abu Safir, the director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital?
Yes, I am in contact with them regularly, almost daily. I am in contact with my respected colleague, Dr. Youssef Aburish, who is the Minister of Health, the Deputy Minister of Health in Gaza. And I also am in contact with my clinical colleagues in the various hospitals, like in Al-Aqsa and Nasser Hospital. These doctors, these nurses, these paramedics, and not to forget these medical students, the Palestinians, are doing a very important, heroic work to keep up some sort of healthcare for the Palestinian people. What they are saying is How is it possible that the world is standing idly by and watching this day by day? Because, as they say, the world leaders have all the facts, all the reports, and we have been yelling and screaming and discussing about the healthcare and the conditions for the civilians in Gaza for 14 months now. Everything is known. And yet, as of today, we see Palestinian children freezing to death in 2024. So what they are saying is that, why is there all this double standard? Why is this allowed against us when it is not allowed in Ukraine, for example? So I think they are very right in pointing to this very disturbing, very, very prominent double standards, which I would call racism, that a Palestinian life, a Palestinian baby who freezes to death isn't even worth a number or a name in the Western media. It's more like a phenomenon. And don't forget that before the 7th of October, the poverty level in Gaza was around 70% because of 17 years of siege. So all the kids in Gaza now, they have summer clothes. When the rain, the wind, the storm, the cold temperature comes, they don't stand a chance in these tents without any source of heating. And all of this is deliberately engineered, planned, and executed by the Israeli occupation forces with the full support of the United States. It could be stopped in a second with a ceasefire, with an opening of the siege, and an all opening of the entry of humanitarian support. Why isn't that happening? Why is there no state leader going to Gaza personally and standing in Gaza and saying, stop it?
Dr. Gilbert, you mentioned there of the world standing idly by. What if these were Israeli hospitals? What would be the reaction then? How different would it be?
We all know. The UN reports sum up that more than 1,000 Palestinian healthcare workers have been killed in Gaza so far by the Israeli occupation forces. You can only imagine what would have happened if 1,000 Jewish medical workers in Israel had been killed in some sort of foreign hostile attack on Israel. You can only imagine what the reaction would have been if one, if not 14 hospitals in Israel had been attacked by foreign forces and destroyed. You can only imagine if one Jewish toddler in Israel had frozen to death due to a siege of the city they lived in, due to a deliberate lack of water and heat and electricity. And this is sickening, because this is what we said in 1945, never again for anybody, no more genocide. And the genocide declaration and laws were made after the Second World War to avoid another genocide. And now it is the people who were genocided who are genociding the Palestinian people. So these are very difficult times, and I'm actually very puzzled and shocked by the lack of leadership among European government leaders, presidents, and prime ministers.
Dr. Mads Gilbert, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for speaking to us here live on TRT World. Speaking to us live there from Oslo in Norway. Dr. Mads Gilbert.
There was a black man who was in South Carolina during slavery who somehow got granted his freedom by his so-called master. And when his master granted him the freedom, he also gave him a plot of land. Now, it turns out this brother was brilliant. He had a good eye, a good knack for farming. And he farmed this plot of land very successfully and made a lot of money. And this is where the story gets crazy. When he got all that money, this nigga bought some slaves. Not only was he a slave owner, he became a slave breeder and employed tactics that were so cruel, even white slave owners were like, yo, my man. He was a wild dude, but he did it just because that's what successful people did at the time, and he just wanted to be down. What a fucking tragedy. How can a person that went through slavery perpetrate the same evil on a person that looks just like him? It's mind-blowing. And, shockingly, they're making a movie about it. Ironically, it's called Space Jews.
أسامة بعاني من التهابات متكررة على الصدر وإسهال مزمن. الدكاترة لحتى الآن لم يتم تشخيص أسامة لأنه لعدم توفر المختبرات في قطاع غزة بسبب قصفها من قبل الاحتلال. فالدكاترة بيحكوا احتمال يكون معاه تليف كيسي أو سوء امتصاص. احنا ناكل معلبات، ناكل عدس اصفر، ناكل بقوليات، وكنا نطعم أسامة زينا. فاللي ساعد حالة أسامة ووصل أسامة لهذا الإشي إنه الأكل هذا ما بفيده وكله بيعمل لتقليل لنقص وزنه.
كأنك تنظر إلى عجوز كهل يعني في المراحل الأخيرة من عمري يعاني من فقدان شديد في الوزن. هذا الفقدان الشديد في الوزن سببه نقص البروتينات.
يا الله يا الله، انبطح. راح تجيب لك مثل عيش للولد هذا الصغير يجي يطخوه. ليش طيب؟ ليه بيقولوا لهم روحوا على المساعدات؟ ليش بيقولوا لهم روحوا على المساعدات؟ يروحوا غادوا يقتلوا فيهم. حرام اللي بيسووا هذول فينا، هذول بيكذبوا علينا قاعدين. مش حرام؟ ومش بيقولوا هذا مساعدات للناس على إنسانية؟ ليش بتسووا زي هيك؟
لا الآلية مش مضبوطة، هاي آلية كلها خوف وموت.
مغتصب 4 من عندكم، خليهم 10
من غزة؟
من غزة. اغتصب بناتكم. طبعا كل بنت اشوفها انا اغتصبها.
وين هذا؟
صرت مغتصب 4 من عندكم، خليهم 10
من غزة؟
من غزة.
انت اغتصبت 4؟
جيب لي زلامك، جيب لي.
انت اغتصبت 4؟
لما كنت امسكهم اخذهم على المعتقل. رب
انت كيف بتنام وانت قاتل 600 شخص ومغتصب 4 بنات؟
You told me you got caught up in the tear gas. I'll describe what happened to you.
Oh, just tasted a little tear gas. Tasted like fascism.
You told me you got caught up in the tear gas. I'll describe what happened to you.
Oh, just tasted a little tear gas. Tasted like fascism.
Honestly, I'm pro-genocide. Like, it sounds really shitty, but like, I think that Israel should just drop its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but like, that's about where I'm at.
You just think that Palestine should just pack up and Native American the fuck out of there?
The problem is that it seems like there is a hugely general hostility to Jewish people across really the entire world, but definitely the Middle East. So the problem is that as you weaken Israel's like ability for Jewish people to live there, it seems like there is because there's a lot of different organizations across the Middle East that are highly invested in the destruction of Israel. So that's like a really rough thing too. So it seems like if Israel is forced to make concessions to Palestinians, it threatens Jewish people's ability to have a homeland. And so I don't know. It's really shit. Truthfully, the answer is like there's no good answer. It's hard. It's hard. It's a really, really complicated situation.
Well,
because it seems like appeasing either end basically means like kind of the destruction of the other end. If you give the Jewish people what they want, Palestinians are essentially permanently cucked out of what they feel is their rightful homeland. And if you give Palestinians what they want, then probably a lot of Jewish people are going to die. Yeah,
that's true.
Because I rewatched the VOD before I joined in. And it did sound like you were kind of saying that you were asked what should happen. And I think you described it yourself as like having like a radicalized position.
يما يما في حد عايش يما في حد عايش يما يما مصطفى كريم كريم مصطفى اي حد يرد علي بس يما يما
We're taking you bitches hostage.
Are you saying that Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself?
Well, of course they do, but you don't blow up a whole country because you get mad. Only the United States enjoys that privilege. We're a superpower. God is on our side. Come.
Innocent Israelis that are getting bombed by Iran. It's not their fault what the government is doing. If you hear anyone make that take, let's remind them of the leaked Telegram chats from a Telegram group that has over 120,000 Israeli citizens in it. This is a photo they sent in the Telegram. It was of Palestinians in Gaza praying for the martyrs, and it was sent into the Telegram group, and they said, "We noticed that you were hungry today and you haven't had dinner yet, so we brought you a large shipment of fresh baked goods straight from the shawarma of Gaza." This one was a video of an Israeli tank dragging a unalived Palestinian person, and they said, "Kudos to the soldiers who, despite the war, keep the beach clean from any unnecessary trash." They said this about a martyred person. Pretty sure this guy is a civilian, not even a soldier, but he posted a picture to the Telegram chat of him peeing on unalived bodies, and then he posted this photo of him stepping on the unalived bodies. This was sent into the Telegram. It was a young girl. I'm pretty sure she was under the rubble and they pulled her out. She was very injured from an airstrike. And they said, cry as long as you can until we get to you two and eliminate you together with your ugly girl. So they were calling this girl, she looks like 4 years old, and telling her that they're gonna unalive her next. This is a young boy in Gaza collecting his unalived parents' body parts. And they said, a young piglet vigorously collects hot and fresh litter to break the fast. This man asked, what did this young girl do to be unalived in Gaza? And they said she was born. Someone also said, why is he holding a monkey? Talking about an unalived toddler. And this one, just to remind you how racist Israelis are, it was a woman who had just came out from under the rubble, and they said, a black face doesn't mean she is a good cleaner. Don't pay her. They literally laughed as children were being unalived in Palestine, not expecting for it to turn around and be them.
Colonel Shoshani, you've also killed dozens of Iranian civilians. Israel claims and often talks about being different to the Iranian regime, but you've also left dozens and dozens of Iranian women and children dead in these operations.
Well, I think we are definitely different. I think it's very simple to see how far different we are. You know, Israel is carrying out precise operation over 1,500 kilometers from Israel, and you see a building with a hole the size of a tiny window, while Iran is firing ballistic missiles with 1 ton of explosives in the warhead. These ballistic missiles can explode an entire neighborhood, and they're just firing them at the center of population. Israel is sending their jets. We're sending our people to be above enemy territory to try and do as precise as we can. And we have been very precise so far. And we have even given warnings. You know, the most important thing in the battlefield is to have the element of surprise. We have given warnings,
which is the Lebanon playbook, and we ended up seeing thousands of people dead in your war against Hezbollah last year.
I just want to ask you, Lieutenant Colonel. We have.
I was on the ground in Lebanon.
We have seen thousands.
I was on the ground in Lebanon, and I saw. Lieutenant Colonel, I was on the ground in Lebanon. I was seeing how you were issuing the warnings and not giving people enough time to get out. And then we saw thousands of civilians displaced and thousands killed. But I just
that is not true. We have seen thousands of terrorists killed in Lebanon successfully. We've not seen thousands of
including civilians, including women and children and civilians in
Israel
Lebanon.
carried out the most precise operation in history with the Beeper operation, we were able to hit thousands of Hezbollah terrorists without anyone around them being injured. You are misleading your audience. Israel had the most precise operation against a terror guerrilla army.
The death toll in Lebanon in 1 week was higher than an entire month in 2006.
Of terrorists, of Hezbollah terrorists.
Were killed. Not all of those people that were thousands of people that were killed were terrorists. And we've seen the same sort of operations in Gaza as well, where 60,000 people, including thousands of women and children in Gaza, have been killed. But I just...
We're going to continue in a bit. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Lieutenant Colonel...
This is bombing USA. USA. This is killed people. Killed children. الآن سوف تشاهدون استهداف للمرة الثانية على التوالي. استهداف هذه المنطقة على التوالي. استهداف هذه المنطقة للمرة الثانية على التوالي. استهداف مباشر للمنطقة بشكل مباشر. الآن شهداء وإصابات في المكان. إصابات وشهداء. الآن شهداء.
There's no easy way to say this, but people gotta know. A new Harvard study is circulating saying that the death toll in Gaza is being hugely underreported. This is the second study in 2025 that is reporting this exact same finding, with the first one being in January by The Lancet, saying that the death toll is easily at 125,000 to 500,000. Currently, the Harvard report says that 400,000 Palestinians are currently unaccounted for since October 7th, where their population was around 2.2 million. It now rests at 1.85 million. We have no idea where these people are, and people trapped under the rubble are not being counted for in the death toll. So the number of 60,000 deaths is a huge misrepresentation of what's going on in Gaza.
ما تا الان کمتر از 30% از توانایی‌هامون استفاده کردیم، توانایی بالفعل، و کمتر از 5% توانایی‌های بالقوه‌مون استفاده کردیم. اولا در زمینه خود موشکی ما امکانات جدیدی داریم که انشالله در روزهای آینده به کار گرفته خواهد شد. ثانیاً ما از توانایی‌های زمینیمون به هیچ وجه استفاده نکردیم، از توانایی دریاییمون اصلا استفاده نکردیم. ما از ابزار نفت استفاده نکردیم، از ابزار تنگه هرمز استفاده نکردیم. از دوستان خود ما، دوستان ما در خیلی از کشورهای اطراف سرزمین‌های اشغالی تقاضا کردن اقدام کنن. ما گفتیم فعلا ما خودمون عمل می‌کنیم. ما کنترل کردیم دوستانمون رو. بنابراین چرا؟ چون ما داریم مدیریت می‌کنیم. اولا ما بارها اعلام کردیم که مردم عادی از اطراف مکانهای نظامی، مکانهای اطلاعاتی، مکانهای فرماندهی ارتش اسرائیل و دولت اسرائیل مردم فرار بکنن. ما واقعا نمیخوایم کسی از مردم عادی کشته بشه. یه مقدار از تأخیر این که آرام آرام داریم موج رو بالاتر میبریم مربوط به این است که مردم فرار کنن، مردم تخلیه کنن. خب تخلیه بکنید، فرار کنید. فردا اگر اتفاقی افتاد نگید که خب چرا ایرانی‌ها به ما موشک زدن.
Minister of National Security Ben-Gvir accused Mossad chief Barnea of starting war with Iran. I didn't know that Iran had such missile potential.
So do y'all remember that lady that was mocking Palestinian moms online and making her makeup like she just got hit by a blast and messing up her teeth? Well, guess who didn't forget? God didn't. But I'm still not happy. I'm not gonna be happy until her teeth look just like the teeth in this video. Because Palestinian moms, the ones that lost children on children, the ones that couldn't get health care, the ones that couldn't get proper hygiene, the ones that couldn't get medicine, the ones that couldn't get food, the ones that couldn't find shelter, the ones that didn't have no fucking bunkers to go to when y'all were constantly attacking them. You made fun of them. You still got on your makeup and you're still looking somewhat decent in this picture. I'll be happy when you look just like this picture.
I'm heading home, heading back to New York.
Right now, I'm very happy to be in Cyprus and get home safe to my family. In Israel, it's very scary. We didn't sleep for nights on end.
And there you have it. Israeli Americans running away from the promised land like chickens. Or should I say, sailing away in luxury ships because they can't take a beating from Iran. And these are the lucky ones, because the vast majority of them have been held captive by their own government. And now they are going back home to wherever they came from, looking for sympathy. While the real victims in Gaza are massacred and starved to death. In fact, they're leaving behind the real traumatized indigenous people of the Middle East. The Palestinians, the Yemenis, the Syrians, the Lebanese, and now we're on to Iran. They have no dual nationality to escape to. The question that I have, since Cyprus is a stopover, how many of them will be staying on to claim Cyprus as a new promised land?
We also had an incident where satellite imagery showed that the Israelis have been dumping some kind of substance into the water supply over in the Shaba area.
And this is, of course, the main water source for much of the water that comes into South Lebanon. And the Golan Heights and the watershed there is almost all the water in Palestine, Jordan, South Syria, and Lebanon come from that watershed. So that shows you that, you know, although they want to steal this water, they also don't want anyone to have it if they can't steal it.
Right.
You know,
very like, if you can't have it, nobody can.
Yes.
Attitude.
It's not like only if I don't steal it, somebody else will. If I don't steal it, nobody else should have it, and they will poison people and their water sources. There was also.
The message that the genocide in Gaza imparts, in particular to the global South, is that we can do this to you. We will stop at nothing.
What have you learned in the last 20 months about sort of human, you know, the human being and the human psyche?
These industrialized nations in the global North have been exposed for who they are. There's no going back. We can't argue that we care about human rights or democracy or can act as the world's policeman, all these tropes that are fed to justify empire and foreign intervention. They won't work anymore. And I think many in the global South who, to be clear, have suffered holocausts of their own, whether that's in Kenya, whether that's in India, the Armenian genocide. And of course, these holocausts were never recognized. As Ami Cesari in Discourse on Colonialism points out, the reason the Jewish Holocaust, the Holocaust by the Nazis, is held up because it was all of the mechanisms that were used by colonists against, in his words, the coolies in India and the blacks in Africa and the Algerians by the French in Algeria were used on white people. But they're not new. But those Holocausts are at best a footnote. They're not even acknowledged by their perpetrators. I mean, the Germans in Namibia, for instance, with Herero and Namakwa. And I think with the breakdown of the climate and with increasing numbers of climate refugees, the message that...
Do you feel the children of Gaza are innocent?
I can see how children are terrorists as well.
You have a picnic here, a couple of kilometers away from Gaza, where the bombs are raining down.
These bombs...
How can you then say that you have a lot of sympathy?
As I've said, we really have no other choice.
Why do you want to live in Gaza?
I can't have as next door neighbors Nazis.
Are you talking about Hamas now, or are you talking about all the Palestinians there?
Okay, so we all know that's a big lie, and I'm a little bit insulted that you could still say that. So let's stop all that propaganda. All the children are Hamas, and they'll be very happy to see all of us burnt all over the world, and they'll destroy the whole world with that, the Christian world together with that.
Are you blaming 2.2 million people for the wrongdoing of 3,500 people?
100%. Now let me explain why. Because they're accomplices to the crime. They're supportive of it, and they were part of it. And we just have to say again, it's not going to happen again.
You guys want to resettle Gaza?
For sure.
Okay. What about the 2.2 million Palestinians who live there? Where should they go?
Let's find some creative solution. We don't want them to die. And that's different from what they want.
You want them to be displaced?
Want them to be displaced, 100%.
Where should they go?
So let's work together. That's the dream.
But when you see the pictures from Gaza where large parts of the coastal strip is leveled to the ground, you think that's restraint? What more can you do to the Gaza Strip?
More? We want to finish the job.
You say you're not an extreme movement, but according to international law, what you're saying, you're calling for the ethnic cleansing, displacement of a people. That's against international law. That's so pretty extreme.
So we're not extreme. Ethnic cleansing is a very
it means
laundered
the forcibly
water.
displacement of a people from a geographical area. This is what you're calling for.
Okay, so when people come, it was done in World War II. It was done many times and brought peace to the world.
You live in the occupied West Bank right now in a settlement which is built on private Palestinian land.
No.
According to international law, that's private Palestinian land.
No, I don't agree.
You don't agree?
There were never Palestinians living there. Also, all the Palestinians that are living around me, most of the houses there are empty, by the way.
But that's partly because some of the settlers have attacked Palestinians.
Nah.
There are videos, Chaim, you know this. There are videos of settlers attacking Palestinian homes, burning them, burning their cars, threatening them, shooting at them. So how can a Palestinian family stay in a situation like this? And we're not talking about inside Israel. We're talking about in the West Bank, which, according to international law, belongs to the Palestinians.
I don't agree. Look, I don't agree.
ايه ما شاء الله عليك ما شاء الله عليك حاضر يا عم حاضر ولا حاجه فيك يا عم ولا حاجه لا ليش تموت ليش كحته كحته ولا حاجه فيك شو اسمك انت ايه ما شاء الله عليك ما شاء الله فيش فيك حال ليش ابوك بخير وين انت صوتك يا عم
أنا يا رب يعوضنا عوض خير يا رب يا رب. الله يسهل عليه يا رب. الله يسهل عليه.
سوء تغذية من بداية الحمل، يكون الأكل متوفر ويكون التغذية ويعيشوا حياة أحلى من هيك. أنا اضطريت اضطرار شديد إن أنا أستخدم العدس في أكلهم، لأنه الحليب مش قادرين نحصل عليه، وهدول توأم يعني يوميا كانوا بيستخدموا علبة حليب. حاليا العلبة صرنا نجيبها يعني تكفيهم أسبوع، لأنه صرت أقسمها مثلا كل ليلة كل واحد رضعة، وفي النهار نأكلهم عدس. ربنا أكرمني فيهم بعد 5 سنوات من الانتظار.
حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبي الله ونعم
ايش ذنبه هذا؟ ايش ذنبه هذا الولد؟ عمره 3 سنتين. ايش ذنبه؟ ايش ذنبه قولوا لي؟
يا الله. There is no need to reinvent the wheel with dangerous schemes. We have the solution. A detailed plan grounded in the humanitarian principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. People are being killed simply trying to feed themselves and their families. The search for food must never be a death sentence.
لا إله إلا الله.
Three months after she came into this world, Jouri is set down on a slab in a Gaza hospital morgue, drained of all signs of life. The Palestinian Health Ministry says she is the 66th child to die of acute malnutrition during the war in Gaza. I do not know what the reason is and what their sin is to be killed in this manner, her father says. Their only fault is being innocent babies. Her father says Jouri was born a healthy 7.9-pound baby, but needed lactose-free baby formula, which he couldn't find in any Gaza hospital. Every millimeter of her body is a testament to Gaza's humanitarian crisis and Israeli policies that have enabled it. For weeks, Gaza's doctors and nurses have warned baby formula shortages are threatening the lives of Gaza's most vulnerable, like the babies in this neonatal unit at Al-Hillu Hospital. Israel's aid coordination agency, COGAT, said it, quote, does not prevent or restrict the entry of baby food, and said more than 1,100 tons of baby food have entered Gaza in recent weeks. While Israel lifted its 11-week total blockade of Gaza in May, it has continued to restrict the number of aid trucks and types of aid allowed into Gaza, resulting in thousands of cases of acute malnutrition among children. For Jouri and her grieving father, it is already too late.
אבל לוקחים
מאחרים. ממי? אז עכשיו השאלה מי, ותדמיינו ממי לוקחים. בתקופות מסוימות לקחו מפלסטינאים, ואחר כך זה היה עולים חדשים, עובדים שוב.
This is barbarism. This is inhumanity on a scale that I thought had been consigned to the history books. This is behavior so disgusting, so despicable, to the point where Israeli citizens, politicians, and public figures, when presented with evidence of a prisoner being raped, protest the prosecution of the rapists. A national security minister responds to the leaking of footage depicting the rape of a prisoner by calling for the people who leaked the footage to be prosecuted, while a mob arrives at the prison where they believe the rapists are being held, demanding their release. And of all the times I have sat here and said to you, I cannot make sense of this story. This is, by some distance, the best example of that.
عمو عمو ايش اسمك؟
زين.
قديش عمرك يا زين؟
10 سنين.
ايش صار معكم يا زين؟ وين كنتوا انتوا؟
يقصفونا بالاوقاف.
كنتوا في الاوقاف نازحين يعني؟ الحمد لله على سلامتك يا عمو. سلامتك.
Doctors at this hospital say it's no longer just bombs that are killing the children of Gaza. Am was born in northern Gaza 2 months ago. In the weeks she's been alive, no aid has reached her at the Al-Rantisi hospital, so she hasn't gained any weight. All her grandmother can do is hold her tiny body and try to ease her pain. In the same war, 3-year-old Afnan's breathing has become erratic. She weighs the same as a newborn and desperately needs surgery for a heart condition.
Blockage of the borders, the shortage in the food, shortage in medication is a real life-threatening situation made by human, and this needs to be ended.
This was filmed inside an aid distribution site in Gaza. And these voices belong to US personnel hired to ensure its security. The footage was obtained by the Associated Press. 2 American contractors deployed to Gaza gave their anonymous accounts to AP, saying they were disturbed by the practices on the ground. One of the contractors handed over videos to the news agency. The pair said colleagues of theirs had repeatedly fired stun grenades, pepper spray and live bullets in the direction of Palestinians scrambling to receive aid. Many of the private security guards hired at the distribution sites are unqualified and unvetted, they said. AP says it can't independently verify the contractors' stories as journalists cannot enter the aid sites. The footage and testimonies offer a rare glimpse into the workings of the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, a US and Israeli-backed organization running a new aid program in Gaza. It was set up to replace the already existing UN aid distribution system, which Israel says allowed Hamas militants to steal aid. The UN and aid groups deny their claim. Hundreds of people have been killed either near the aid distribution hubs or along access roads guarded by Israeli forces, according to Palestinian medical authorities in Gaza. One of the GHF contractors told the AP that Palestinians arriving at the aid sites are caught between Israeli and American fire. GHF denies that any serious injuries or deaths have happened on its sites. It says shootings outside of the immediate vicinity under the domain of Israel's military. The Israeli military has said its forces have only opened fire on groups they viewed as a threat. It says the number of casualties at aid distribution sites are exaggerated. Amnesty International claims aid in Gaza is being militarized as a starvation tactic against Palestinians. Israel has rejected this. More than 170 humanitarian groups have called for the GHF aid scheme to be dismantled, saying it puts civilians at risk of
What is the crime that the child did for him to live that way? There's no crime for him, just for being a Palestinian.
احنا بدنا ناكل رمل، احنا بدنا ناكل رمل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. خيرة شبابنا بتروح، خيرة شبابنا بتروح. اولادنا بروحوا، اولادنا بروحوا، اولادنا بروحوا. اي مساعدات اللي بتحكوا لنا عنها هذه؟ اي مساعدات اللي بتتكلموا لنا عنها هذه؟ هذه مساعدات الموت، هذه مساعدات الدم، مساعدات الدم، هذه مساعدات الموت. أي مساعدات؟ إحنا بنروح نجيب مساعدات في الكيس، بنروح ميتين في الكيس، إحنا بنروح ميتين في الكيس، مش بنروح مساعدة، بنجيب مساعدات. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. وين إخواننا في شقين الوطن؟ وين إخواننا في الضفة؟ وينهم؟ أنا بناشد إخواننا في الضفة، انتفضوا، انتفضوا. وين إخواننا؟ وين إخواننا العرب؟ وين إخواننا؟ كل يوم 50 شهيد في المساعدات. احنا بدناش مساعدات، احنا بدنا ناكل رمل، احنا بدنا ناكل رمل، احنا بدنا ناكل رمل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. بدنا نعيش، بدنا ناكل، الناس بدها تاكل، الناس جاعت.
Got IDF tank posted on the northwest corner now. I brought him in and talked to him. There's to the show force. But I told him to hold there. I don't want this to be too aggressive.
اخواننا الصغار اكل العالم ايش جايين تعملوا يما قطعين وبسكوت يما يا حبيبي شوفوا لفرجوا العالم ايش بقى حامل وايش بقى شايل بقى شايل ايش اشهدوا خلي العالم يشهد انه حامل عدس مش حامل.
What kind of savage tells a starving people to come get food, then opens fire on them like animals? That's not war. That's not defense. That's genocide baited with bread. Israel called it humanitarian aid, but it was a trap, a setup, a blood-stained performance. Gaza's people starving, barefoot, desperate, lined up.
They're trading Palestinian underwears, most likely unalived Palestinians' underwear, for thousands of shekels. They're trading it on the black market.
It appears that the ceasefire is about to be signed. People should keep in mind what kind of failure this has been for the Biden administration. We've heard now from Jacob Lew, the ambassador to Israel, and from the United States. Before people start sending me emails like, why aren't you crediting Biden? He's been working all night.
People are saying that?
Well,
people need to...
You'd be surprised who I hear from. But if you read this Jacob Lew interview, where he was questioned about targeting, there are many questions about many incidents after every war. There's been a process of internally looking into things that might have gone wrong in different places that hasn't been resolved. When the secretary says there are still questions to be answered, there are still questions to be answered. In the IDF, there are still questions to be answered. But fundamentally, nothing that we ever said was just stop the war. You never heard criticism from the United States for Israel carrying out strikes for almost a year in southern Lebanon, attacking Hezbollah and diminishing Hezbollah. You've not heard a word of criticism from the White House, the State Department, the Defense Department of the United States of the operation in Rafah. I don't know who he's bragging to. We never had an arms embargo. Not in May, not since, never. So just to give you a sense of like, he never, ever, Biden never, ever utilized any of the leverage that the United States had to get the Israelis to stop the war, stop the attack on Gaza. Frankly, for that matter, let in significant and sufficient amounts of aid. Never did any of those things.
Historically precedented things, and now Trump's recent act is the new precedent.
I mean, I don't know why Israel is stopping the war now. I am not convinced of the story that Trump is leveraging this. Regardless, that will be the narrative.
خلاص انتوا بخير خليها كويسه
ما رجعنا يما وين البنات يما ليش رحت وسبتيني يما ليش رحت وسبتيني.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
Areas in North Gaza, Gaza City and Deir Bala. They were urged to head south, but 80% of the strip is now an Israeli militarized zone or under evacuation orders. At least 20 people were killed this afternoon in an Israeli strike on the beachfront Al-Baka cafe in Gaza City. And a warning, this report from Porrick O'Brien does contain some very distressing details.
This was filmed from the famous Al-Baka cafe on the beachfront in Gaza City a few weeks ago by the photographer Ishmael Abu Khattab. The cafe was renowned as a place of work and refuge for artists and journalists. Today at around lunchtime, it was hit by an Israeli missile. Ishmael was killed along with at least 20 others. Abu Abdullah was there when the strike took place.
It was a missile from an F-16, a military aircraft, not a drone or a bomb or a shell from a boat. The F-16 shook the place. It struck this place, as you can see, pools of blood, piles of martyrs. I mean, if you had seen the scene from the beginning, there were piles of bodies.
We asked the IDF today who they were targeting and are still awaiting a response. The attack came after Israel carried out a wave of airstrikes across the strip overnight and into today. The IDF had warned of a major offensive over the weekend, triggering another cycle of mass displacement. With Donald Trump pressuring Netanyahu for a ceasefire and at the same time calling for his corruption trial to be dropped, it's not clear whether this is part of a final military push before a pause in the violence or just another gear shift in its relentless acceleration.
Well, when Health Secretary Wes Streeting was asked about bomb villain yesterday, he condemned them. But he also said that Israel needed to get its house in order with regard to the West Bank. He was referring to an upsurge in violence where settlers have stepped up their attacks on Palestinian towns in the occupied territories. There are many such examples, and our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson, went to see one town, the site of horrific violence already this week.
Mere location, the difference between living and dying. These houses located nearest to the neighbouring illegal Israeli settlements, and here, near, means vulnerable. Wednesday night, massed groups of Israeli settlers invade Kafir Malik, burning cars, trying to burn down houses. Israeli soldiers look on, firing warning shots vertically, then levelling their weapons, they advance at the Palestinians, not the settlers. For decades across the West Bank, Israeli settlers have been stealing Palestinian land. Now, though, emboldened by Israel's wars and with support from far-right government ministers, they appear to feel they can act with impunity. And at the first house they got to in Kafir Malik, the car remains burned out, windows smashed. Inside, evidence of an attempt to set fire to the house. Palestinian villagers here say 17 people were in at the time, 11 were children. Cars burned out in several surrounding streets. Bullet cases where Israeli soldiers opened fire on Wednesday. One village elder said he saw the settlers coming in a 30-car convoy.
The commoners are just crazy. They want to kill everybody. If they can kill the kids before the old man, they will do it. That's what they're doing. And the Israeli government is not doing nothing.
A grandmother grieves for a lost grandson. 30-year-old Moshed Hamayel, father of 3, shot dead here on his veranda by an Israeli soldier. 2 other young men also fatally shot by the army during the settlers' attack. Lutfi Bayrat, who was 18, and Mohammed Naji, 21. Their faces now adorning the town hall, a monument of mourning. For Abdel Khaled Hamayel, a miraculous escape. An Israeli army round grazed his skull.
I saw the settlers coming in and burning houses, so I tried to help, and the soldiers started shooting.
The army says it's focused on protecting civilians, but it says it was fired on first here by Palestinians. What do you say?
No, nobody fires.
That's not true.
Not true. Nobody fires. Nobody, they have no weapons. How are they going to fire? With what?
The entire killing zone here overlooked by Israeli military surveillance. They have not produced any evidence to back their claim that they were fired on by villagers. After everything that went on in this village, it is perhaps the cold statistics which speak most eloquently.
Can I just start by asking you what is your view of whether your government, your military, has done a good enough job of proving their claim that there was a major command center and bunker under Al-Shifa?
It's already known for many years that they have in the bunkers that originally was built by Israeli constructors underneath Shifa, were used as a command post of the Hamas and a kind of a junction of several tunnels, part of the system. I don't know to say to what extent it is a major. It's probably not the only kind of command post. Several others are under other hospitals or in other sensitive places, but it's for sure had been used by Hamas even during this conflict.
Well, when you say it was built by Israeli engineers, did you misspeak?
No, decades ago we were running the place. So we held them. It was many decades ago, probably 4 decades ago, that we helped them to build these bunkers in order to enable more space for the operation of the hospital within the very limited size of this compound.
Okay, all right. Well, that's sort of thrown me a little bit. So these were there for a long, long time, but you're claiming, or they're claiming, that they're used as a major command center. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that as yet, they have not shown conclusive proof of that.
In Palestine, the olive harvesting season is not just about olives. It's about financial, cultural enrichment wrapped up in identity. And in the Jordan Valley on the occupied West Bank, that means violence is never far away. For militant settlers intent on displacing Palestinian farmers here, olive groves are the battleground. We're from Channel 4 News in Britain. Not only empowered by the current Israeli administration, funded by them as well. So the quad bike that almost ran us over...
I paid for it, yes.
As an Israeli taxpayer?
As an Israeli taxpayer, yes.
We're following a busload of Israeli human rights activists into the olive groves near the village of Bet Hassan on the West Bank. So we're approaching the olive groves now. We're in Area B, which means Palestinian civil control, Israeli military control. The activists are here to help a Palestinian family harvest the crop and to monitor the activity of an extremist settler called Moshe Sharvit. His farm, illegal under both Israeli and international law, overlooks the grove.
Yes.
Even before we arrive, he makes his presence felt, hitting the side of our car. Sharvit believes he has a God-given right to be here on someone else's land. Armed with a gun and a smartphone, he's not bothered about the attention. In fact, he's enjoying this. Privilege by divine decree. He is sanctioned by multiple countries. We literally just arrived, and he came speeding over the hill on a quad. Obviously wants everyone to know that the settlers are here, eyes are on this group. It's an act of intimidation, basically. The international community has imposed sanctions on him and others across the West Bank. The reasons for the British sanctions against Sharvit were because he, quote, used physical aggression, threatened families at gunpoint and destroyed property as part of a calculated effort to displace Palestinian communities. In this case, the Razak extended family. They own the olive grove and have the paperwork to prove it. Sharvit and others are slowly grinding down their farm, from ransacking their home one night to hundreds of acts of sabotage, of fencing, watering systems, olive trees.
هذا حقد عنده بكره العرب يعني ما بحب يشوفهم بده يعيش هو بس بده يعيش على الدنيا هو بدوش عرب من مرة هذا يعني اللي في وجهه بس.
We're interrupted by a phone call from over at the olive grove. Israeli soldiers have arrived and are asking for people's ID. This woman's brother-in-law has left his at home. She's too afraid to go there herself for now, so asks us to bring it to him.
From his family, not her husband. He's there. Because the military.
Here's how this works. Sharvit, the settler, manufactures a security incident. The IDF are called in to respond. Then a military exclusion zone is sometimes applied for, which hampers the olive harvest. None of this, of course, features in Moshe Sharvit's online video, where his wife appeals for donations.
There aren't enough Jews living here.
But that's not the only revenue stream. Haggett Ofran researches where settlers get their money from.
The settlements are based on government money. Without the government, there were no settlements at all. All the infrastructure, all the services, everything is coming from the taxpayer, the Israeli taxpayer. Specifically, the settlements that are official get it officially, and those that are, according to the Israeli regulations, considered not to be legal, they also make their way to get money from the government, but this is less official.
That includes grants to illegal settlements like Sharvit's from the Department of Agriculture via regional councils, and grants to look after disadvantaged young people who then become the foot soldiers of harassment.
This video really quickly because I want to get this information out there. This is the very respected British surgeon Nizam Mamoudy, which I may have just pronounced incorrectly. He spent a month in Gaza between August and September in Nasser Hospital. And I want you to listen to his testimony, which very much speaks for itself.
What I think I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful that you're making the time to be here today, and I can only imagine just how it has impacted you and will continue to impact you. And I feel, because you can't unsee what you've seen, but being able to share that with us really helps us hold legislators particularly to account. So we do appreciate the time that you're making for us today. Thank you.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children, and we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day, operating on children who would say, I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter came down and hovered over me and shot me. And that's clearly a deliberate act, and it was a persistent act, persistent targeting of civilians day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day, and that meant 10 to 20 dead, 20 to 40 seriously injured. Now, a hospital like Guy's, where I used to work, Guy's and St Thomas's, might get 1 or 2 a year. We had 1 or 2 a day. And 60 to 70% of the people we treated were women and children.
I'm sorry to do this, draw you a little. You say children. I wonder if you could tell us sort of the ages of the children. And you say that they said that they were lying on the ground from a bomb shock. Do you believe them?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, a 7-year-old's not going to make up a story.
We're talking little children,
yeah.
not late teens.
Well, from the majority of the children who were casualties were young children, but we had casualties in their teens, we had women in their 30s, and it was a very consistent story. And the story would be given as soon as they came into the emergency department. So I have absolutely no reason to doubt this. And the bullets that the drones fire are these small cuboid pellets. And I fished a number of those out of the abdomen of small children. I think the youngest I operated on was a 3-year-old who had a major injury to the artery in her neck. And we used the last shunt, which is a device you use to bypass the artery in the neck to keep supplying blood to the brain. We used the last one in the hospital because those kinds of things are just not available. She died about 3 or 4 days later from infection.
You believe it was deliberate targeting of civilians?
Absolutely no question in my mind, and it's been the experience of so many healthcare workers who've documented it time and time again. But my personal experience and those of my colleagues this was clearly persistent, deliberate targeting of civilians. And I've worked in a number of conflict zones in different parts of the world. I was there at the time of the Rwandan genocide. I've never seen anything on this scale, ever. And that was also the view of all the experienced colleagues that I worked with. One of the surgeons in my team had been to Ukraine 5 times and said, this is 10 times worse.
That
Gaza is facing what doctors are calling a silent catastrophe. A complete collapse in infant nutrition. Formula milk supply is unobtainable. Pharmacies are empty, and the few trucks that do enter Gaza carry none. With the starvation spreading, many women are eating only once a day, and sometimes not at all, leaving them physically unable to breastfeed their newborns.
She's crying now because she wants milk, but I can't breastfeed her. I can barely feed myself. There's no formula anywhere, and when it rarely appears, it's too expensive. I'm exhausted, truly exhausted.
In Nasser Hospital, in the southern city of Khan Yunis, the health of more than 580 premature and medically fragile infants is at risk. The last tens of medical-grade formula are gone.
I've been in Gaza for 4 weeks. In the hospital I've been working at, I've never seen any formula milk at all. No cow's milk even for the older children, no meat, no protein. So there is definitely a lack of formula milk in Gaza.
Scores of children have already died from malnutrition, but doctors warn the real crisis is still ahead. With formula milk banned from entering Gaza by Israeli authorities, families are left with no safe way to nourish their babies. In Gaza, mothers are doing everything to keep their babies alive, but their bodies are shutting down from hunger. With no food, no formula, and no safe alternative, they are watching their newborns suffering in their arms. Tariq Abazoun, Al Jazeera, Deir al-Balah, Palestine.
Don't miss out. Get the They said they were quite confident. We heard from Antony Blinken. Jake Sullivan was doing a tour of the Middle East. He said he's quite confident that there's going to be a ceasefire in Gaza imminently.
The Americans are covering up the Israeli crimes. This has been the American behavior, the behavior of this American administration since the beginning of this genocide. And they continue to provide Israel with the equipment and military weapons and bombs that are used to bombard Gaza and kill so many people. As you have reported, it's 45,000, but actually 55,000 people killed if you include the 10,000 that are missing under the rubble. And then more than 110,000 people injured, many of whom will also die because Israel has destroyed most of the medical facilities. We are facing here not only the Israeli savage genocide and collective punishment, including starving people, but we are also facing Western racism, absolute racism and double standard when it comes to the Palestinian people. The fact that the world is allowing this massacre to continue, and the death and killing and torture of Palestinians, and making even people die out of starvation and diseases, because Israel is not only using bombardment, it is using also implicit chemical and biological warfare against the people of Gaza. And you see the images, you see the children who are killed, the women who are killed, most of the people killed are civilians, women and children. And yet we don't see any serious reaction from the Western world, nothing.
We've seen some unofficial figures which show Israel suggesting it's killed 17,000 Hamas members. The problem is, if that number is correct, Mustafa, it means that Israel regards almost every single male adult in Gaza to be a member of Hamas. And if that's the line they're pushing, many Western nations seem to believe them.
They killed more than 17,000 children, not 17,000 Hamas fighters. And I just remind you with what the Israeli defense minister said at the time, Gallant, in the beginning of this war. He said that every Palestinian above the age of 3 is a terrorist. That gives you an idea about how they think about Palestinian people. They called us human animals. And they consider us human animals. And they have no respect for the humanity of the Palestinian people, whether it's a man, a woman, a child, an adult, an elderly person like the one who was killed today. They don't care. And unfortunately, the Western governments, most of them, I don't put everybody in the same basket, but most of them have provided them with the political cover, and provided them with military equipment, and continue to supply Israel with weapons that are destroying the whole future of the Middle East. Look at what they have done in Syria. Without any provocation, they destroyed the whole ability of the Syrian state to defend itself. Complete destruction. They occupied much bigger territory, also of Syria, and they're continuing the operations. That means we are dealing here with an expansionist military structure that wants to dominate the whole region and not just the Palestinian territories.
Mustafa Barghouti, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Israel.
On the 29th of July 2024,
testimonies and videos obtained by the Associated Press show American contractors guarding aid distribution sites inside Gaza are using live ammunition and stun grenades as hungry Palestinians scramble for food. 2 U.S. contractors who spoke to us on the condition of anonymity because they were revealing their employer's internal operations said they were coming out because they were disturbed by what they saw as dangerous and irresponsible practices. Both have extensive military experience. They say the security staff on site were often unqualified, unvetted, and had an open license to do whatever they wished. Their testimonies, combined with videos, text messages, and internal reports seen by the AP, provide a rare glimpse into the workings of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the new American organization backed by Israel to provide food to the Gaza Strip's population. Journalists have been unable to access the sites, which are located in Israeli military-controlled zones. Since the GHF sites began operating about a month ago, Palestinians say Israeli troops fired nearly every day toward crowds on roads heading to the distribution points through Israeli military zones. Several hundred people have been killed and hundreds more wounded, according to Gaza's health ministry and witnesses. The military has repeatedly said it's fired only warning shots, denies deliberately firing toward civilians, and says it's looking into reports of civilian harm. AP's reporting reveals what's actually happening on the sites themselves. The 2 contractors say their colleagues regularly used bullets, stun grenades, and pepper spray on the sites. Videos that one contractor took during the first 2 weeks of distributions appear to back up the frenetic scenes they described. In some videos he filmed, men in gray uniforms, which he identified as his colleagues, can be seen dispensing tear gas and throwing stun grenades that land amid the crowd. The sound of gunfire can be heard. They can later be seen trying to clear Palestinians squeezed into a narrow, fenced-in passage leading to one of the centers. One photo shared by the contractor shows a woman lying in a donkey cart after he says she was hit in the head with part of a stun grenade. Another photo shows a Palestinian crying after the contractor says he was tear-gassed in the face. To confirm the footage is from the sites, the AP geolocated the videos using aerial imagery. The AP also had the videos analyzed by 2 audio forensic experts who say they could identify live ammunition, including machine gunfire, coming from the sites, in most cases within 50 to 60 meters of the camera's microphone. In another video, what appear to be heavily armed American security contractors at one of the sites discuss how to disperse Palestinians nearby.
Hey, got IDF tank posted on the northwest corner now. I brought him in and talked to him. There's to a show force. But I told him to hold there. I don't want this to be too aggressive.
At that moment, bursts of gunfire erupt close by, at least 15 shots.
I think you hit one.
The camera's view is obscured by a large dirt mound. The contractor who took the video told AP that he saw other contractors shooting in the direction of Palestinians who had just collected their food and were departing. He had a clear line of sight to both shooters. He says they shot toward the exit to the site, where he could see Palestinians leaving the center some 80 meters away. He says the men shot from atop a tower above the site and from atop the mound. The shooting began because contractors wanted to disperse the crowd, he says, but it was unclear why they continued to shoot as people were walking away. The camera does not show who was shooting or what was being shot at, but the contractor who filmed the video says he watched another contractor fire at the Palestinians and then saw a man about 55 meters away in the same direction that the bullets were fired drop to the ground. The AP cannot independently verify this account. Both contractors say they were armed with pistols, automatic rifles, and some had machine guns. Audio analysis of another video, taken at night, indicated that machine gunfire came from within 115 meters of the camera. The Israeli military says it's not deployed at these aid sites. In response to our reporting, SRS, the company that handles the operation's logistics, acknowledged that it's dealing with large, hungry populations, but said the environment is secure, controlled, and ensures people can get the aid they need safely. SRS says to date there have been no serious injuries on the sites. It says that security professionals had fired live rounds into the ground away from civilians a few times in the early days of the operation as crowd control measures. The GHF says its team is composed of experienced professionals and warned that there were people with a vested interest in seeing GHF fail. UG Solutions, the security company that hired the contractors, said it has an extensive recruiting and training process, including a detailed application process, screening by experts, reference checks, background checks, and weapons proficiency. But the contractors who spoke to the AP painted an entirely different reality. One warned the current GHF system could result in more Palestinian lives being lost.
How long did it take you to understand that this was simply the regular, everyday reality for Palestinians? How long did it take for you to no longer be surprised by what you were hearing?
Few days.
Wow.
Because look, I went to a, just trying to think, I went to a refugee camp and I was speaking to a gentleman by the name of Muntha. Just before that, I had spoken to some soldiers who were walking across an Islamic grave, with their boots, crunching through it and doing it on purpose. And, I started to speak to them and I got a bit of footage and, I said they're not real men because they were trying to tell me that I wasn't a real man if I didn't film. And they said, we could shoot you from anywhere. And I said, okay, good luck. Do whatever you need to do. They've walked off. I'm interviewing Muntha, who is quite a well-known activist. a Dahisha refugee camp. And then I hear this, and it's an M16 round that they had walked down around the corner and shot, not at me, but towards me, just to say, we'll take a pot shot. And during this interview, there's a mural of this young kid who was executed, 16 years old, coming home from school, had a school bag on, shot through probably, I don't know, 70 metres, 60 metres, maybe a little bit further. Big great door. But within that great door, there's another little door. You know, when the gun comes through the little hole, and they shoot him through the heart and they kill him. So he's dead. His family, kids, because it's a community area. There, you know, there's kids everywhere. But the soldiers come out at around 3 o'clock, between 1 and 3, depending on what school and how old. That's when they're coming home, and so this is when they start to do this to intimidate them. Well, they put a mural up. You know, a great picture of this kid. There's bullet holes in the picture. So, you know, it's planned, because every time these kids go home, not only do they have the memory of their friend being executed for doing nothing, only being a Palestinian, they have to walk past the picture. This is what can happen to me. This is what probably will happen to me, because the chances are pretty high. I visited another Mohammed El-Kurd. You may know this name. The El-Kurds have become famous because of Jacob, who said that if I don't steal it, somebody else will. So I met him, and he was a kid. He was 14 or 15 or 16, maybe, where I first met him. And I knew that he was special. You could tell by the way he was speaking, and you know, he would document. I was with a lady that could interpret for me. So he sort of opened up. It took him a while, because I'm definitely not an Arab. I'm more likely to be a Jewish guy than an Arab, and so it's sort of, you know, a bit standoffish. And his front of his house was taken. So for years and years, every year he'd come home from his birthday, the family would be starting to build, you know, years after getting the actual permit for the house. The family would go down to try and get the permit, and they'd say, look, no, come back, you know, we'll give it to you maybe next stage. Long story short, they finished the front of their house, the renovation. Israelis come over, lock part of the house up. Within a few days, there's a bus coming down the street, a whole lot of Jews, some from America, some from Israel. And there's footage of this. And you can see young Mohammed El-Kurd. He was 12 years old documenting this. So it's out there. And they are dancing around in there, taking his home. East Jerusalem, Sheikh Shela. And he's now, he was voted, I think, like one of the most 100 or 50 most influential writers of people. He's brilliant. He gets labelled an anti-Semite. He gets called an anti-Semite for speaking out of a people that have taken his house, stolen his house, whose entire job, they'd only be in there for 3 to 6 months because they were supposed to be so noisy, loud, intimidating, so the El-Kurds would leave. But he didn't leave. Now he's become somebody, which is fantastic. 100 metres up the road, there's another young guy, another Mohammed. He had just got out of jail because he stuck up for his... he came home and there were settlers beating his mother because there's a settlement very close. And so he went in and he got home and he was protecting his mother, fighting to get him off. He went to jail. The settlers didn't. And I said, you know, what do you want to do? And he said, he's a funny kid. And he said, look, I want to be a doctor. But he says, there's no point, Rob, because even if I got my degree, where am I going to work? Because, again, it's impossible. It's impossible. So he's not going to bother. Then working another day, walking around, and I see a carriage load of cars and cars with flashing lights, people with balaclavas on. And I thought, Jesus, what's going on here? And this is the crew, the crew. It's the demolition crew. So they're coming, and they were there between 1 and 3. I can't remember the time, 1 and 3. I've got a photo of it. I've got a photo and of evidence of everything I've seen. I've got photos of it. And there's a family of kids, the young girls in the hijabs that just come home from school. And this is when they come to demolish their house. There was maybe 9 to 12 people living within this house and a half, all there with their school books and their school bags. And you're sitting there looking, and then so one of the guys I was talking to, he started off with a balaclava. He took it off at the end. I don't know if he was overly comfortable with what he was doing, but he knew that he had to do it. There was no ifs or buts about it. He had to do it. And so when you see a family like that, because they've got nowhere to go now, there isn't anywhere to go. The Israeli government don't say, look, we've demolished your house, we'll find a place. And people have the audacity to wonder why the Palestinians have an issue with the Israelis. I'm one guy walking around, one guy, no film crew, and I'm seeing all of this. It is an absolute disgrace that any Western government can allow this to happen. Any Western government. Nobody can possibly say that they don't know. Nobody can say these things. Nobody can say, I should have done something, because you can do something. That's the time. And we're sitting here now, October 7, and I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying October 7 changed the world. Israel was the beginning of the end for Israel. It is the time that the world saw them for what they are. I saw them for what they are in a smaller amount in 2014, in the little sections. I'm not surprised at what they do here. By seeing these, the ones through the occupied West Bank, I can see exactly those guys doing the same thing throughout Gaza. And the world has woken up, and we will be sitting here one day and we will discuss how good the liberation of Palestine was, but why it took so long and why it took so much blood. Every single Palestinian person, every single Palestinian, every single one of them has to be remembered. Every drop of their blood is going towards the liberation of Palestine. And every single person that participated in it will never be forgotten. We will hold them to account. And anybody that hasn't spoken up, anybody that has ignored it, will not be forgotten either. That's where we're going. We just have to get there soon.
I'm terrified at the moral apathy, the death of the heart, which is happening in my country. These people have deluded themselves for so long that they really don't think I'm human. I base this on their conduct, not on what they say. And this means that they have become, in themselves, moral monsters. I'm terrified.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are. And This is what they do. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn.